We're going to call our shot right now. I completely understand. Full disclaimer. This is extremely early. These guys have not hit the field just yet and started spring practice. They're going to, I believe, probably battle a lot of these guys into fall camp. But as we sit here right now, I feel like it'd be a helpful exercise for us just to kind of call our shot, make a very early prediction on these quarterback battles across the country. Because, y'all, you look at who's going to have a quarterback battle from spring, potentially in the fall, there's a lot of high-profile schools, a lot of contenders breaking in a new quarterback. So we reserve our right to change our mind, but we're going to call our shot right now in the early predictions for these quarterback battles. Let's start in Athens, Georgia. It's going to be Gunnar Stockton and Ryan Puglisi getting after it a little bit there in the spring. I think that one will go into the fall, as I just mentioned a second ago. The good news, if you're a Georgia fan, both these dudes are dogs. Not from a, like, oh, that's a funny pun perspective that they got a bulldog as a mascot. These dudes are literally absolute animals on the football field. Gunnar Stockton gets decapitated in the SEC title game and then walks off the field. Need I say more? Ryan Puglisi, if y'all remember, was committed to Georgia when Dylan Raiola was also committed to Georgia. And Ryan Puglisi made it very clear when we talked to him when he was a prospect coming up. He's like, I'm not transferring. I'm not decommitting. Like, I want to go to Georgia. I believe in myself. I believe in what Georgia is going to be for me. I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to have a battle when I get there. Now, of course, Dylan Raiola eventually does decommit and goes to Nebraska. But that always stuck with me, the way that Ryan Puglisi just stood on business during that commitment. Like, the fact that he steered the conversation, actually, towards that discussion around him potentially decommitting and going somewhere else, other schools hitting him up. That said a lot to me when we talked to him. As it stands right now, I would give the edge to Gunnar Stockton. I will make my prediction for Gunnar Stockton. But that thing, just so we're all on the same page, is a lot more wide open than I think some people assume. The assumption is, hey, Gunnar Stockton played against Notre Dame, played relatively well against Notre Dame, barring a couple of unfortunate plays here and there. He's going to be the guy. Yeah, it's a fair assumption, but it's going to be competition. Talk to somebody close to Georgia that says Kirby Smart's not worried about losing anybody necessarily, just in general on his roster. He's going to breed competition. He's going to bring in more guys to push each other. Competition is the name of the game there. So I'll predict Gunnar Stockton from an experience standpoint. That's my my quarterback battle prediction for Georgia. Gunnar Stockton wins the job. But that's one to watch over at Dogs HQ pretty closely. For Ohio State, this one to me doesn't feel super complex. You got Lincoln Kienholz, who's a top 10 guy when he came out. You got Tavian Sinclair, who's extremely talented, going to be a true freshman. And you got Julian Sayin. I just said this. All uber talented. All probably could play for Ohio State and do a great job. What I have a hard time overlooking is all the buzz we had this time last year around a Julian Sayin. Remember, he commits to Bama, goes to Bama, enrolls at Bama, and then Saban retires. He's short-term signee, hits the portal, ends up at Ohio State, and all spring, the hot take was like, is Julian Sayin going to push for this job right now? That was the hot take. Well, that was the widely believed take, but that was the hot take. To me, when you have Jeremiah Smith, the best player in college football, you play whoever does the best job getting him the football. And I believe Julian Sayin with his skill set, I believe he was the number 2 quarterback for us here at On3 coming out of high school. That's enough for me to say, okay, he probably deserves to be the guy. And assuming that he doesn't miss a beat from last spring, I believe Julian Sayin is going to be the individual who is quarterback 1 for Ohio State when it's all said and done. Alabama's the trickiest one to me. I want to say this. I have the lowest level of confidence in predicting who wins the quarterback battle for Alabama. You got Austin Mack, you got Ty Simpson, and you got the wild card that is freshman Keelan Russell. Now, Keelan Russell, from what I have been told from folks close to Bama, is arguably the most raw, talented quarterback of this group. So leave that there. You also think about the fact that he's a freshman. So do you really want to roll with a freshman after a lackluster season year 1 for Kalen DeBoer? Well, then, JD, he gets the excuse to say, we played a freshman last year. Give us some time. Y'all, it's Bama. There's no excuses at Bama. It is win now, which makes me think it's probably a Ty Simpson, Austin Mack discussion as we sit here right now before spring football. The tough part that the tough part for me when it comes to wrapping my mind around this battle is Ty Simpson and the fact that he hasn't gotten more playing time just yet at Bama. Like, we all saw what Jalen Milroe lacked last year. The fact that Ty Simpson didn't even get any burn at all to like spell Jalen Milroe, there was no, hey, should we put Ty Simpson in and be a spark plug here? That makes me a little bit nervous as to what he's going to be. Now I say that, and then I also couple it with the fact that Austin Mack, the transfer from Washington that came over with Kalen DeBoer, was 4th on the depth chart last year, from what I've been told, which doesn't make you think that you're going to go from 4 all the way up to 1. So my prediction for this is it's Austin Mack. Again, lowest confidence level. It wouldn't shock me at all if Ty Simpson was your guy for game 1, just by nature of him sticking around and what his skill set is and how he's fought it out and all that. But Ryan Grubb coming back, I'm not telling you that's the end-all be-all that just makes him his guy, but I do think there is a possibility that gives Austin Mack maybe a head start. Maybe he's more comfortable in the offense from install 1. I don't know. We'll see. But Austin Mack, right now, we'll go ahead and place our bet on him and probably get plus money doing so. Colorado's got a quarterback battle here in the post-Shedeur Sanders era. You got Caden Salter and Julian Lewis. Caden Salter, of course, y'all remember, transfers over from Liberty, had a lot of success there. Julian Lewis, high-profile recruit, kind of the crown jewel of this most recent class for Deion Sanders. I think this is a dogfight. I think Julian Lewis absolutely pushes this thing probably into and through fall camp. I just think that Caden Salter and his experience and his mobility and the fact that they brought him in general, they didn't bring in some scrub to just back up Julian Lewis. They didn't bring in some dude that was there to, be a backstop. They brought in Caden Salter to real deal compete for the job. So I'm going to lean Caden Salter actually and help you my prediction. Let me be clear, this is not me being down on Julian Lewis at all. He is the future. And to be honest, I've been very open about this. I love, honestly, freshman quarterbacks having a chance to sit for their first year. I think there's such a thing as playing too early. Get a chance to get in the weight room, learn where class is, get comfortable in the offense, all those things. And then once all of that is up to, a year under your belt, then you get a chance to play and go ball out and your confidence doesn't get bruised because you played too early or any of those things or develop bad habits. Not saying that would happen to Julian Lewis, but to not even risk it with Caden Salter being your guy this year, to me makes a lot of sense. So I'll go ahead and make my prediction for Caden Salter, obviously with Julian Lewis being the future out there at Colorado. Notre Dame's tricky. You got CJ Carr, who folks have raved about since he was a recruit. You got Steve Peanut Butter and Jelly. We're a fan of him on this show. And then Kenny Minchie, who doesn't have quite the same amount of fanfare, maybe just because of how his recruitment went. He was, I believe, a pretty quick commit to Notre Dame. Folks didn't have a chance for like that whole deal to build, rather, more mobile option. I think it's Steve Angeli. It's hard to dismiss what happened in the Orange Bowl. The fact that he has stayed since Riley Leonard came in and was the guy last year, and the fact that in the Orange Bowl, when Riley Leonard goes down, Steve Angeli steps in there and essentially saves Notre Dame's playoff life. If they don't get 3 points on that drive to end the first half, does Notre Dame end up losing that game because they're down 10 going into half? A touchdown coming out of that gets you at 7-10. Okay, great. Well, then Penn State gets the ball back. I don't know. The butterfly effect is very interesting, but I think that Steve Angeli and what he has done to this point, he has earned the right to be the starter. I think he will earn the right in spring football to be the starter. Maybe if not then fall camp, but I think Steve Angeli is your guy. Auburn is really interesting because I was talking about this with Caden before we got rolling here, and I almost didn't include this as a quarterback battle because I just feel so strongly that Jackson Arnold was brought into play. That is not how Cato feels. Just full transparency. I don't want to speak for Cato. I know we will talk about this on Thursday, I'm sure. But there is a belief from him that it may not be Jackson Arnold. He needs to see some more, and I don't blame him. Like, it's hard to just dismiss what he did at Oklahoma or what he didn't do at Oklahoma. Now, the circumstances around what he did at Oklahoma probably deserve a load of attention as well. But Jackson Arnold, I think, was brought in to play. I think it's his job to lose. What becomes interesting to me is if he struggles, do you go to Ashton Daniels or do you go to the 5-star freshman quarterback Deuce Knight? Because whenever you have a 5-star cat in your locker room at the quarterback position, if he is who you believe he is, of that caliber, he's probably not staying for 4 years. My point here is why redshirt the guy? So I think Deuce Knight could very well factor into this thing as a whole in general. So I think it's Jackson Arnold. That'll be my prediction. But again, that is not the unanimous prediction on this show. Michigan, to me, is super fun to talk about from the quarterback battle perspective. And this is not to dismiss Jaden Davis. This is not to dismiss Mikey Keene. This is not to dismiss Davis Warren coming off an injury. But Bryce Underwood's going to be your quarterback next year at Michigan. And part of that, you say, well, JD's getting a lot of NIL money. Yeah, that plays a factor, I would have to imagine. I had someone tell me today they're not paying these kids, not speaking of Michigan, but in general in the world of college football, coaching staffs and collectives are not paying a kid to be trained and sit on the bench for a year and then be the guy. Bryce Underwood is the number one player for us here at On 3. He is the first ever 100 overall graded recruit for us here at On 3. He is the future. He's also the present. The reason why Bryce Underwood changes the entire trajectory of what Michigan football can accomplish in 2025. That's not being hyperbolic. What he brings to this offense, we'll talk about this offense here in a second, he gives them a totally different ceiling. You want to run the power spread offense? That's awesome. You better have a quarterback that can distribute the football downfield. Better have a quarterback that can also take off and run and hurt the defense. Michigan is still going to be a run-heavy attack. I believe that. But Bryce Underwood and how good he is, he's going to be too good to not be your starter game one. Unless he is woefully out of his depth and for whatever reason just cannot field the snap and cannot process what's going on around him with this defense, which is not uncommon for freshmen, I suppose. I highly doubt that's the case, and I fully believe that Bryce Underwood is your guy from game one, which is going to be awesome too. That's going to be a lot of fun if you're a Michigan fan, to not have to wait around too long and clamor for this true freshman to get on the field, and he's not playing, so you're chanting Bryce in the stands in the big house. I don't think that happens. I think he's your guy from game one.